Hello, and welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Jameelah, and I am a master manifester, and I'm sure you are too, because you are consuming content like this. The name of this channel is Holistic Manifesting, because I believe in a whole body, whole mind, and whole being experience when it comes to manifesting these amazing lives that we are choosing to live. What I am discussing in this video is you are too good for that, right? And this is not coming from some arrogance or high and mighty type position, and I'll explain. Stick with me. But you have to know when you are too good for something that's showing up in your life, right? And if you're enjoying content like this, or if you're enjoying my videos, feel free to subscribe to the channel. This is more about you than it is about me. More so because getting messages about people not getting videos and they didn't see it in their timeline is mostly related to the algorithm and what you're subscribed to and what you're not. So if you're subscribed, you'll see more of the videos that I post on a daily basis in your feed. Okay, getting back to the video. It's not about pride or arrogance. I always got to start off with that, right? It's about knowing better and then doing better, right? So sometimes we come across these situations in life to where they can be really pivotal moments. We have choices that we can make, right? And a really common one that I noticed could be like a mate, somebody showing up in your life. And you can clearly see some very strong and powerful red flags that are just like flaring at you, right? But it's like when you look at it almost, you're like, well, there's that good part about them. There's that good part about them. There's that good part about them, right? And so you try to do yourself not a favor by ignoring all of those red flags and things that are showing up in your space, or like showing up when this person shows up. And so what happens with that is that all of that work and all of that time and energy you have put into expanding yourself, becoming a better person, doing your meditations, believing in the things that are impossible and that they're possible in your life, right? I feel like you're going to throw it all the way down the drain just to make room for something that you are much better than. And that's not saying that you are much better than another person at the core of being a human being, but you are much better than the person's behavior and what they're sharing and showing with you in at any given time, right? So let's just remember, this is not about arrogance or pride or boasting or anything like that. This is about knowing that you've done the work, knowing that you've put time and energy into being the highest version of yourself, and knowing that when something comes around that speaks to the lower version of yourself, you're even too better than that version of yourself inside of you. So not just in other people, you're better than that version of yourself within you, in your own existence, right? You have to become too good for some things in life. Otherwise, you don't truly understand the growth and expansion. We can always do this kumbaya, love, and, accept and do every and anything with anybody. And it's like, well, I don't look at any friendships as wrong. I used to be that same way. I don't look at anybody like what they're doing doesn't impact me. What they're into, it doesn't impact me very much. And I'll be honest with you, I've tried to hang on to friendships where I knew that I was shifting my life into the highest version of myself and that they were not. And you know what happened in the end? They wound up ghosting or just falling out of my life, or just not even being a person that, was even in the vicinity anymore, right? Something happened and changed or shifted. So it's like even the universe, even the creator knows that these behaviors, this environment, what this person is displaying is speaking to your lower self. When you want to live in the highest version of yourself, you have to become too good for some things, right? And some of those things, I have a little list right here, are things like gossip, casual sex, chasing friendships. And that's another big one too, because some people think, well, being a good friend or, being somebody that people can depend on, that people can look to for help or assistance or something like that, means that we're chasing friendships. No, that just means that you have a scarcity mindset about having better friends in your life. And you think that if I chase this person or if I show them how much I care, then I'll be valuable enough for them to reciprocate. And it's really just a lack of value. You have to know that you're valuable enough and the right people will see that in a good friendship, right? Chasing relationships is another one that you got to be too good for. because nothing good ever comes from chasing someone around. If someone can look at you or spend time with you and inherently see your value or inherently see your great things and want to be a part of that, then it's usually not going to be a positive thing. It's not going to work out. If you have to do a lot of performing or a lot of showing this side of you or showing that side of you or a lot of dressing up or putting on makeup or, always looking like this or looking like that, or either taking off makeup and stuff like that, because I've had people say that kind of stuff to me too. If you got to do all these things, constantly performing, then that's essentially chasing a relationship, and you got to become too good for that kind of stuff, right? Binge eating things like a whole bag of candy. And the reason why that made it that's a personal one to me. Like binge eating in general. But I say a whole bag of candy, I mean, it's like going upstairs to go to bed. I don't even do it. I get little Ziploc bags and I'll put like 10 little like jelly beans or something like that, whatever I have in the cabinet, because I know that I'm not going to come all the way back down the stairs to go get anything else, right? And I leave it there. If I go upstairs with a whole entire bag of chips or a whole entire bag of candy or a whole entire bag of cookies, something that I'm eating, you're most likely going to binge it. So I have to tell myself, you are too good to be taking up a whole entire bag of any snack to your bedroom, because you already know what the consequences of that might be. You already know what you might do, right? So you got to be better than that. You got to not appeal to that lower nature. And it's kind of like those base desires, the stuff that we hear about the most related to the root chakra, the chakras that are in the very survival mode, the one that wants to engage in the casual sex, the one that wants to binge eat the food, the one that wants to have the instant gratification, the one that always wants to be comfortable. We have to rise up out of that into our higher natures, right? And then another thing is, like I said, gossip and belittling others. You got to get better than those types of conversations. And that's not to say when someone's going in or having a conversation and you used to gossip with them and all of a sudden you just turn a cold shoulder and make them feel crappy because they're gossiping and you're not doing it with them. I'm not talking about that kind of stuff. That's just like if they're having a conversation and they're going in on somebody and be like, yeah, isn't that funny? And it's like, you know what? Do I do that kind of stuff? I'm really good at that. Like if somebody says something about somebody else, I try to bring it back to us so we can remember that we're talking about another human being and we're not just talking about some people out there that are just so different from us doing so many different things. Sometimes we're guilty of a lot of little things that we're gossiping about other people about. And I also feel that that's the reason why some things stick out to you, is because it is a piece of you that you see so clearly that you can see it clearly in others, right? It's always people. I was in the store the other day and this lady was going on about overweight people. But the thing about it was she was overweight too. And I was thinking to myself, like, that is an interesting concept. That's an interesting thing. But you'll see that psychology in a lot of people. They'll dig deep and gossip and and taunt people that have a very similar thing that they have going on. And I think it's just self-deprecation to some degree. But you got to get better than those behaviors and that nature, right? You have to get to a point where engaging in those behaviors give you sort of the ick. Like, it's not that you're looking down upon people. It's not that you're looking at them like they're not good enough or something like that. But it has to give you like the ick. It has to make you feel like, girl, you've come too far. You've done too much work. You've accomplished too much in your life. You've meditated too much. You've read too many books. You already know this is the wrong road to go down. When you look at some of these things that are not up to par, you got to be like, ick. You know what I mean? If it's trying to speak to your lowest nature, it has to get to a point where it's just like, no, it's not going to happen, right? You can't have that little door open all the time, because other than that little crack, it turns into a gaping hole, and then you're available for the nonsense again, and then you're wondering how you got there again, right? Worrying about whether somebody's talking negatively about you behind your back, that's something that you got to outgrow and get better than, and then caring about it. I think that's one of the biggest wastes of time. It's safe to assume that people are talking about you behind your back. And I'm not even saying that in a negative way. And just know that because people talk and that's just what they do. And you have to not care about it, right? I decided a long time ago, I used to make these videos and think, I don't want to say that because then I might offend these people. I don't want to say that because I might offend these types of people. I don't want to say that because that might, and I've long since stopped caring about that. If it's something that pops in my head that I want to share, that I feel like is a part of this personal development journey that we're all on, and then trying to manifest and create the lives that we choose, I'm going to discuss it. So the idea that someone might talk about me afterwards, it's like, it doesn't even cross my mind anymore. And like a couple of years ago, that used to be huge. It even held me back from sharing on topics in the way that I wanted to share on them. I would like skip around topics and all. And it was even worse when I had like a friend group, because some of the people were insecure, and I was always thinking, well, they're going to think I'm talking about them. Even being in personal relationships, the person I was with at one time would watch the videos and come back and say, were you talking about me? And I'm like, no, I'm just being myself. I'm just talking about things in the way that I want to share them. So I found that I have to not care about it at all. And in not caring about it, I tend to attract and bring people towards me who wouldn't sit there and think, are you saying this about me? Are you trying to, normally they'll just float away if they actually think that. No, my thoughts are my own. When things occur in my life, sometimes they trigger things that I want to share, but you have to become more secure in who you are so that you don't even care if somebody's talking about you or saying things. You have to become better than caring about that kind of stuff, right? Even if you find yourself in these spaces out of habit, the minute you become conscious of it and your connection to it, you have to say to yourself, like, that's my little mantra, I'm too good for this. Like if I find myself by mistake, because we're all human, it doesn't matter how many of these videos that I make and how much I talk about these subjects. There's some things, yes, that I am grateful to have outgrown, but there are some things that because of the people that are around me, sometimes these things reoccur in my life. And when they do show up and reoccur, right in the middle of the conversation, I can tell myself, girl, you're too good for this. And it's not saying I'm too good for the other person. I'm too good for the level of the frequency that we're on in that particular moment. So I'll do my big pivot that I normally do, change the subject, get off the phone, or, bring in another topic of some sort, or look at the topic from a different perspective. That's the best way to do it. But the little thing that I say to myself sometimes is like, girl, you're too good for this, right? You're too good for this. You've done too much. You working in your higher nature. You're too good for this. And then there's always a pull to have you see yourself as less than or mediocre in our society, right? So we shy away from declaring that we are better than certain behaviors. There's always a pull, like a pull back to the middle, a pull back to like the bell curve, like everything in society. And I said this before because being a sociology professor for a long time, you notice the trends in any statistics is that everything generally follows this bell curve in society, right? The majority of things happening is usually happening right in the middle. Like if you look at society, like what's the largest group of the income for people now? There's a bell curve shape that says that it's somewhere around the middle to working class, right? And it just almost with anything in society, you can look at it and say, it peaks here and then it comes down. If you go like on Google and you look at like the store busyness or something like that, the vast majority of those stores will have this bell curve peak. They'll have a time when things peak and then it comes down. It's kind of like waves crashing. Everything has sort of a crescendo, right? And it's the same thing when it comes to people. There's always this pull towards the middle, the pull towards mediocrity, the pull towards being average, right? And anytime you're a person that doesn't want to be average in any kind of way, say it's income or something, you don't want to be average. If you pull towards the lower side of it, then you're a person that's living on the streets, and people have a problem with that, right? You're living in a car or a van. You may have money doing that, but people kind of like, that's not really, how you should be or whatever. They have all these opinions about it. And if you're a person that's on the upper echelon of things and you have, millionaire status or even higher, then your person is like, oh, how did you get that money? You must have did something evil. You must have did something ugly. You must have did something, what is it called? Shifty or Shady in order to bring that into your space. And then that's just not always the case. The reason is because there's a pull towards the middle, a pull towards mediocrity. So you be hard pressed in a lot of environments to declare that you're better than some behaviors because you're going to immediately get ostracized and disliked. That's why I always tell people, if you're in certain workplaces and you're there as a means to an end, there's a goal you're working on, you're trying to create something and go beyond it. You're not trying to make it your life or make it your next plan that you have going on in your life, then go ahead and button up about those sort of things, because all you're going to do is create contempt. And then they're going to look at you as like, she thinks she's better than us. He thinks he's better than us, right? And it's not necessarily what you're saying. You think everybody should feel like they're better than certain behaviors, but you already know that everybody doesn't. So just keep that in mind. There's always this pull to mediocrity. There's always this pull to being average that you have to pay attention to, that you're not falling into the trap of, right? So declaring it can be an issue for some people. And then we're always taught in life to try to appeal to people at all levels, right? You'll notice that when people like make it in a certain way in society, like they make it big, or they create something positive in their lives, or they go and become the person that they always wanted to be financially, they get the marriages they want, they get the children that they want, they travel the way they want, they become spiritually in tune the way that they want to, they get to do the activities that they've always been looking forward to. There's always people saying that, they're brand new, or they don't give back to their community, they don't go back to where they came from and stuff like that. But you got to understand that a lot of people aren't interested in that. They made real deliberate and intentional action to break away from an environment. They don't want to go back to being cozy in that environment again, right? And we're always taught that we should be appealing to everybody on every level. And notice sometimes people don't even get with some people unless they know that they do some type of low level behavior. And I can always think back to my younger years when Bill Clinton was in office, and he had the whole thing with Monica Lewinsky, and how many people liked him more after that incident. And I'm like, that is so interesting. He displayed something that was in the lowest nature of his existence, and yet he had the highest popularity for certain groups of people. I found that to be very interesting. So it just lets you know that you can't worry about appealing to people on all levels. Sometimes you're just going to outgrow some levels. Sometimes your behavior is going to be better than some environments, right? You're not going to want to smoke on the weekends. You're not going to want to drink. You're not going to want to, hang out and do casual sex with people. You're not going to even want to discuss that kind of stuff. You're not going to even want to live in that lifestyle. And when that happens, you have to be okay with saying, hey, maybe this group is going to call me bougie or something like that. But I'm okay with that. I'm okay with people saying those things about me. And like I said before, you got to become better than caring about it. And then you have to ask yourself, how does it help me to pretend that I'm okay with certain mindsets and behaviors that I'm not okay with? How does it help you to pretend that you're okay with certain low-level behavior that you're not okay with? Because what I'll tell you this is, people at certain levels are never trying to appeal to all levels. They always have this attitude, I feel like, that people need to appeal to them. They're not always trying to appeal to your level because they don't even have the capacity to see the higher version. So what's going to happen is you're going to go in there with your mindset of, higher version of yourself, not working off the base desires, being a benefit and a blessing to others, treating people with utmost respect, having all these values and beliefs and ethics about you. And then you go in these environments where it's down here, and then you got to say, okay, there's no way they can just meet you up there instantly, but you already know what this environment is like because you probably had access to it before at some point in your life. So what happens is you got to completely go down to this level every single time you get into these environments. There's no meeting in the middle, because if there was, they wouldn't be operating here. There's no meeting you up there, because if there was, once you get a taste of that higher desire, the higher version of yourself, and you start being and living there more, you're less likely to just hang around in the bottom. So what happens is you're always having to adjust yourself to meet the standard of the environment you go into. And it's really no benefit for you to be able to do that. I heard another creator saying, which I also like this too, that you can see it as contrast. You can see it as, this is not what I want to be and I don't want to experience, but how many times do you need to see certain behaviors to decide this is good, or a good reminder that I don't want to have this, right? Like, I don't have to have drugs put in my face every day for me to be like, oh yeah, that's what drugs do to you. I can be okay with saying, nah, you've come too far in life for that to be your behavior. You're too good for that kind of behavior, right? You can be okay with that. And if you're about to settle for something in life, you got to stop and ask yourself, is this fitting for the work I have put in? So it's not even about, like I said before, being better than other people. Say, is this fitting for the person that I am the personal levels I'm trying to attain? Is this fitting for who I want to become in life? Is this fitting? Like, if this behavior came along or these things came in my life, is it something that I would give to my daughters, right? If it's not something that I would think that they should have, or they should be, or that they, should value, then why would I want it for myself, right? So you have to ask yourself, am I settling for something that is a less than high version of myself? Or am I going to say, let me walk away from that and decide, you know what, you've done too much work, you've put too much time and energy in. You can't erase that by dealing on this level, And it's okay to remind yourself how far you've come when you know better than the old version of yourself, right? So it's like I said earlier, it's about even being better than the older versions of yourself, right? And if you haven't seen my video on timelines, that's a really good one that I discussed that on. It's like when you've moved to a new timeline, you have to become better than the old version of yourself too. Because sometimes you'll go in spaces with people and environments and they know this version of you that existed at a previous time. But it's like, do you have to cater to it, or can you tell yourself, what was I thinking? I'm so much better than that. I'm so much better than working in that behavior. I'm so much better than operating with that mindset. I'm so much better than giving people such an ugly side of me. You know what I mean? So just keep that in mind. Whenever these moments happen or these things occur, it's okay to say that you're too good for some behavior, right? I think we need to change the idea around that language and not make it so taboo. It doesn't mean that you're saying you're too good for other people. You're too good for certain behaviors. And you know why you're too good? Because the Creator does not make things that should operate at low levels, right? The Creator didn't make you so that you can operate at a level that was less than what's intended. The highest version of you is what's intended most of the time. Yes, we can fall down. Yes, we can have these moments to where we think, I can't believe I got caught up in that, right? But at the same time, the highest version of ourselves is where we want to be, because that's where we find the most peace. That's where we find the most abundance. That's where we find the most unconditional love. That's where we find the most contentment. That's where we find the most value. If there was anything to be found in those lower levels, then most people would never even try to leave them. But there's nothing there, right? So yes, you're too good for it. Take away that stigma and the taboo around saying that. You're too good for those behaviors. Be okay with saying that. And so it is. Have a wonderful, wonderful day.